Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and this is going to be a departure from the normal reel repair. I get this question frequently, and I thought I would take a moment to go through it. The question is, what kind of tools do you use in reel repair? So I thought I would share with you the more common ones that I have, and if you're setting up your shop, we'll talk about which ones actually are can't live without, and which ones are nice to have but not necessarily important that you go run out and get one. So let's start with a tool I've never used, courtesy of Dick out in Philadelphia. This is very nice. This is actually a split screwdriver. Dick has noticed in my videos that I struggle with small screws, and this is a smaller version of the split screwdriver that widens the blade as you push down on the collar and enables you to trap a screw. Well, he's seen me fumble with an awful lot of small screws, and I do appreciate him sending this one along. So this one will definitely be in my go-to kit in terms of what I do. But let's start with the ones that are on my desk day in and day out, and I really don't even start a video without those tools. So what are they? There's about 4 basic ones that I have. I have my old dependable screwdriver. You can see how the grease and everything is worn down the plastic matting on it. It's actually an electrician screwdriver. It's a 3/16 head. Handles almost all of the fishing reel flathead screws. I don't know why, it just seems to work out that way. I like the electrician screwdrivers because they have the rubber coating. That's of course for anti-shock when you're going in and changing a wire on a receptacle or something. But I like it because it gives me a grip, enabling me to twirl that screwdriver. Just one of those that feels comfortable in my hand, and so I kind of had that as my go-to screwdriver. On the Phillips head side, it's a number 1 Phillips head. It seems to work on almost all of the Phillips head type screws that are in fishing reels, and at least it's a place to start. This one just happens to be a basic Harbor Freight $2 Phillips head screwdriver, and it's done me well. On my desk all the time in almost all of my videos is a punch. This is an awl. It actually comes from a set. It's also from Harbor Freight. It's got a shaft that narrows down. This has so many uses that I can't start a video without it. I use it as a centering piece. I use it as a punch to pull pins out. I use it to set springs by grabbing the circular end of a spring and stretching it. I've got hundreds of uses for it and never start without it. I also have another type of punch. They're a little bit smaller and a little bit bigger. Same purposes. This one's a narrower one to a point. This one's a thicker one. Used as punches, used as centering pins, and so on. I also have a Craftsman smaller screwdriver. This one doesn't drive many screws, but as you can tell from that tip, it has an awful lot going on there. And I use it generally as a scraper, so that as I get dried grease, and that's what a lot of this is on here, that dried grease scrapes off the inside of the reels. And that's particularly useful when you're doing older fishing reels, classic fishing reels that have sat around a while and had that grease coagulate. Well, before I go much further, if you're liking these kinds of things, you like the art of reel repair, you like to learn a little bit more about fishing reels and how they're made, and you actually like to see them repaired, I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you subscribe to my channel, please hit that notification button. You'll see when I'm posting, and you'll be able to make a determination as to whether that's a video that you want to watch. So those are always by my side before I ever start a video. Well, what's close by? Close by is a utility knife, and it's more than just using this utility knife to open up a box. The utility knife is a wedge, and so anytime I need to lever something out of position, think the small spool adjuster washers that sit on an axle shaft on a spinning reel. Well, that slides in very nicely, and then you just lever it up. So I use it for that. I also use it as a scraper on metal spools that have heavy corrosion. You can use the knife side of that and just gently scrape it, and that'll help remove some of that heavy-duty corrosion. I also have scissors nearby. I actually have a couple of scissors nearby. Those are for trimming line for the most part. You'll get braid line or you'll get monofilament or something on those spools. It just gets in the way when I'm servicing, and those are good tools for that. When those other screwdrivers don't do well, I have a micro driver set. This is just, again, it's the cheap, this happens to be a Stanley set, but it's just a cheap $5 set of micro ones. And they certainly come into play an awful lot, particularly on the low-profile bait casters and other reels that use small screws. So that's nearby. While we're at it, I have a set of micro files. Again, a relatively inexpensive set. Maybe they're, I don't know, $10 for a set. Has the rat tail, has a square, has a variety of flat and somewhat rounded ones. Always good for removing corrosion and also for filing down imperfections on some of the metal parts. That's followed by a whole bunch of brushes. I have a brass brush, steel brush, and then a series of hard bristle brushes. That's all for cleaning and for taking care of any dried greases and the like. Well, one other thing that I use in the cleaning, I'm not a dentist, but I do use dental picks, and here's a whole set of them. That's not only for getting the tough stuff out, but you'll notice this one, for example, it has a broad flat place. Well, that is an excellent bearing puller. So if you slide that in the hole of the bearing and you lever it up, you'll pop the bearing out. And you can see there's a couple of different versions of that. One of our viewers sent me in a crochet hook that does very well in that regard as well. And just different kind of tips to that, as well as one that's kind of got the pointed end on it to be as a scraper. So those are basically cleaning and disassembly tools. I have a variety of other screwdrivers in there when the needs are met, and I always encourage you that when you go for screwdrivers or you're working on a screw, make sure that your screwdriver fits the slot. Don't use something that's undersized and risk butterflying the screws. So here's your number 2 Phillips head. Here's a close version of the electrician screwdriver that I use. This works particularly well on the Penn's bigger reels, as does this one. And this works for, well, we just used it on a squall when we had to take out a big screw that holds the main gear in. It also works well on like a Penn 85 that has a screw as the handle screw and so on. One tool that I could not live without is my micro pliers. I think this is an Ace Hardware version of it, but it's a micro needle nose pliers. It's great for holding small things where my hands cannot reach in. So I would say this one would normally be at my side and used in many of the videos that I have. I also use a channel lock pliers, but it's the smaller version, and I don't see a number on this one, it just says channel lock. Oh, 436. It's a smaller version, but boy, this thing is good when you're heating things and you need to keep your hands away from the heat, and it's good for holding things in a clamping environment because, of course, the channel lock has the various channels which can open up the gap on your pliers and hold things down. I also use a Mitchell tool. This is a 12mm socket. It was designed for the Mitchell 300, but it works on any reel that has a 12mm nut on it, and it's particularly effective when you have a deep rotor. That is a rotor cup where you cannot reach it by a straight open-ended wrench. So that one always stays by. Speaking of my wrenches, I have the 10mm always by my side, and the 10mm is almost every round bait caster's handle nut. I also have on this side, it's the ratchet side of the open end, which is giving me more flexibility there in terms of use. When I can't reach it with a wrench, I go to my socket set, and this is just a series of popular sockets. I believe I go from the 9mm up to the 15mm. That's always close at hand. The other wrenches that I have on the table, well, they're mismatch, but again, they're just Harbor Freights, nothing special. But it's a set of metrics that goes from the 7mm up until the 15mm, up goes to the 17mm. And there's also a few in here that are the standard SAE versions. Here's a 9/16 and a 5/8. Those are important when you're working on the older reels that were made in the U.S., like the Pens and Shakespeare's, and some of those that did not convert over to the metric technology. I always get asked this one. It's just an old style ratchet, but what's on there is an 11/32 socket, and that handles the bearings on most of the side plates of the pen reels. So that one gets a lot of use, that's why it's there. But we started with that channel lock pliers. Let's just finish with a couple of things. I have a standard needle nose pliers. You'll see that one makes it into a lot of my videos. That one is for gripping where I don't need the micro. I have another micro pliers, very small in terms of the hold on that one. I have a needle nose that has the bent in case I need to get into the access point on there. And finally, I have a lot of these, but I have a split ring pliers as well. That's the one with the beak that enables you to open up split rings by kind of compressing down, and that's good when you're changing hooks on lures that have the split ring attachment. And but these, I would say, of all of these, you don't need all of these. If you want to get one that's a basic needle nose pliers, one will work fine. You can live without the others. I also have a micro clipper. I use that to cut springs when I'm trying to fabricate kind of a bush fix on things. When I lose a spring or the spring's missing, that micro clipper works very well. And then finally, a tool that I tell you don't use for reel repair, but well, sometimes it's just necessary, and the tool is the hammer. I hate anybody who takes a hammer to a piece of machinery. This one is a soft blow hammer. I wish I could find more of these. It's a plastic tipped hammer, and from time to time I need to knock out a pin. You might have a pin in for example, in a damn quick reel that's holding the gears on. You oftentimes have a pin on spinning wheel handles. You can see it on this one here. There's a pin holding that spinning wheel handle in. And if you need to disconnect that, well, you're going to grab one of the punches that you have. You're going to center it on the pin and then use that to tap that out. So I do use a hammer, but I do not recommend it, and I certainly don't recommend metal on metal where it will mar or damage the other metals. So I go with a softer blow hammer there. So that's kind of a quick tour, a virtual tour of my workbench. Again, the ones that are important to me is the #1 Phillips, the 3/16 electrician drive, the channel lock, the 10mm wrench, the punch in various sizes, and the utility knife. The rest of it, and of course, just looking over here, the other one that I have is an Allen Tanny handle screw wrench, and it fits both the smaller size pens and the bigger size pens. This one also fits the Daiwa reels as well. This one I know I get a lot of questions on because folks have that traditional pen wrench, just a lot smaller and just the one size. And they asked me where you can get this. This one was available at mysticparts.com. And it's a treasure to have and to use if you're doing a lot of repairs. So there you have it. I hope that I've answered that viewer's question. Dick, thank you for this one. We're ready to try it. We'll put that on the bench right now because I do struggle with small screws. To all of you that may have a question, please leave them in the comment section. I will try to answer them for you. To everybody who's been watching, thank you. I appreciate your viewership as we head towards 20,000 subscribers. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do. To all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.